Hello everyone, thank you for purchasing my tool, the Data Sanitizer. In this video, I will show you how to obtain free, high-quality data for historical backtesting. I will show you how to import this data into MetaTrader 4. I will show you how to analyze the data to see if it matches closely the data you can expect from your broker. And then, if it doesn't match closely, I will show you how to clean it up so that it will match closely, and therefore to ensure that the backtest performance of your expert advisor, of your robot, matches as closely as possible to what you can expect in the real world. As a first step, we need to obtain historical data for backtest testing. One excellent source for such historical data is FXCM. FXCM has an FXCM app store, and in that store, if you go to catalog standalone, you'll see a bunch of apps, and one of them is called the Basic Historical Data Downloader. It's a free app. This tool will allow you to download backtest data for the major symbols in forex for multiple years, down to the minute. So go ahead and install this tool. Once downloaded and installed, the FXCM Data Downloader will prompt you to log in. You can log in with your FXCM demo account credentials, which you can obtain for free via FXCM. So I will go ahead and log in. Once logged in, you can choose the start date. Let's choose January 2016. And the end date. Let's choose today. For downloading your data, you choose the instrument. Let's pick the British pound versus the US dollar. The type of data. For MetaTrader 4, you must choose bit data. And the time interval. Let's pick 1 minute. You choose your download folder and you start the download. Once the download is complete, the data file is available in the folder you've chosen. We should now be able to import this data into MT4. So let's go ahead and try this. In MT4, or for backtesting in general, I recommend to create one instance of MT4 dedicated to backtesting. This instance should not even be connected to any broker services, to any data feed, for the purpose that we don't want the freshly downloaded data from your broker to interfere with our backtest data. So as a first step, I would recommend to disconnect your MT4 instance from your broker feed. You can do this by double-click on the connection symbol here, log in, and just remove the password, and click on Login. This will disconnect MT4. You see this error message here. At this point, MT4 is no longer connected to your broker. This also means that no longer any market ticks will come in, no more fresh data will be populated in your chart. Now, let's now go ahead and import our historical data. So for this, we go to Tools, History Center. You pick the symbol, in our case GBP USD, 1 minute, you double click, and as the first step, you remove all existing historical data. So you click on the first row, press Shift and Control, scroll down to the last row, select the last row, select all the rows, then delete. And you do this for every time frame. Once done, no more historical data will be available for GBP USD, and we can start our import process. So we select our time frame by double clicking, in this case 1 minute, and we go to import. We browse to pick the file that we downloaded from FXCM Downloader, and we'll select it. Unfortunately, as you can see, nothing seems to be importable at this point. And there's a reason for this. The format or the output format of the FXCM download tool is not compatible with what MetaTrader expects. And this is where the Data Sanitizer comes in. Data Sanitizer is a conversion tool, among other things, which will convert the FXCM output data to a format which is understood by MetaTrader 4. Before we convert the FXCM data to MT4 data, let's first understand why MT4 is not able to read the FXCM data. For this, let's just open the FXCM data file in a text editor, in my case edit with Notepad++, but you can choose any text editor that you want. Once opened, you see the data provided by FXCM. If you just pick the first row of price data, which is basically the second row in the editor, you can see that the date and the time is provided as follows. First, the month, followed by a dash, then the day, followed by a dash, then the year as 4 digits, a comma, and now the time, the hour, colon, minutes, colon, seconds, and then the price data will follow. Unfortunately, this is not the format expected by MetaTrader 4. Instead, MetaTrader 4 expects first the year, period, then the month, period, then the day, comma, hours, colon, minutes, and no seconds. So you can see the FXCM format and the MT4 format for the date and time are not the same. And this is what causes MT4 to not being able to import the FXCM data. One function of the Data Sanitizer tool is to convert the FXCM data format to the MT4 data format. In order to convert the FXCM data to the format expected by MetaTrader 4, we open up the Data Sanitizer tool, and as a first step, we enter the license key. The license key was provided to you by the confirmation email after you purchase. Click Validate to confirm that the license is valid. Next, we browse to the FXCM data file. Open. We can choose the output file name. I will simply call it MT4 at the end. Next, we have to specify the date format of the input file. In this case, the FXCM date. If you remember, the FXCM date was month dash day dash years, comma, hours, colon, minutes, colon, seconds. To verify, you can click test and you see the date formatted here. This should match the date format of the date in the FXCM file. Next, we can choose the date format of the output file. By default, it is the format expected by MetaTrader 4. So we do not have to change anything here. And for the time being, we uncheck the box Remove Sunday Data. We will talk about this feature later on. Once we're all done, we click Sanitize. Shortly after, you will receive a confirmation message stating that the conversion is complete. In this case, all but one line have been converted. And this makes sense, as we know that the very first line in the input file was reserved for the header of the data. The resulting file will be saved in the same folder as the input file. In my case, desktop historical data. And as we can see, we have another file here, GBP USD M1 bit MT4. This was the output file name we gave to the output file. As the next step, we will now attempt to import the converted file into MT4. Back in MT4, we go to Tools, History Center, we pick the symbol and the time frame, double click, Import. Now pick the file GBP M1 bit MT4.csv. As you can see now, we get historical data. MT4 is able to interpret the historical data provided in the file. We press OK. We'll close. And as a result, once we refresh the time frame, you'll see that the historical data has been imported into MT4 starting from January 1st, 2016, or January 2016, all the way until today, 2017. Let's see how well this data matches up with the data provided by FXCM in the live environment. Because this is our ultimate objective. The historical data should match as closely the data that we can expect from the broker. So, in order to do this, I'm going to open up a second instance of FX Pro, which is still connected to the FX Pro data service. So I'm going to minimize this a little bit. I'll close the navigator here. This is my second instance of FX Pro. As you can see here, this one is still connected to the data feed. And now let's find a data point which is easily recognizable in both MetaTraders. So I'm going to scroll back a little bit in the live FX Pro up until I can see something that stands out, just so I have a reference point. All right, so this seems like a good reference point here. If you look at the data window, we can see this is the Friday data from January 6th. Yeah, all the way up until the market closes, and this is the Monday data when the market opens. And we see this big gap here, which is normal over the weekend. Now let's check our historical data. We're going to go back to the same date and time, which is January 6th, when the market closed. So let's go back here. January 6th. And as you can see here, this looks quite different than the actual data provided by FX Pro in a live environment. So the FXCM data, in fact, does not completely match up. We probably can tell that the beginning up until the market closes fairly similar. If we look at this data here to what we see here, fairly the same. And then of course we don't have all this stuff here, but at this point here we can also see, this seems to be almost the same as what we have here. So in fact, what FXCM did and what the FXCM historical data is all about is that it has data for market times which are not tradable. So all this data here, which we can see here, up until this point is not tradable, as you can see here. FX Pro was not even open at that point. No orders would have been filled or closed, or no ticks would have come in during this period. What we need to do next is to use the data sanitizer to remove this data from the historical data, because we don't want the backtester of MT4 to use this data to place trades, because it's not realistic. It's not what we can expect in a real life environment. Okay, so we're going to have to tell to the data sanitizer to remove the untradable data. And at the same time, we'll also need to adjust the time zone of the data. One example, if we look at the time of this last bar here, which is 23:59, and if you look at the time of the last bar here provided by FXCM, we say 21:59. So the data is 2 hours apart. They're not in the same time zone. It is, however, very important that the data that we use in our backtesting has the same time zone as the data we use in our real life environment. Imagine a trading system which places trades based on a certain time of the day, or closes trades based on a certain time of the day, and you would like to test it. Well, if the historical data does not have the same time zone as the broker that you would like to use the expert advisor in, the backtest results will not be realistic. They will be very different. So we need to adjust our time zone as well. In this case by 2 hours. We have to add 2 hours to every single bar that we see here. Okay, so you want to remove data that occurs during untradable times, and you want to adjust all the FXCM data by 2 hours. Let's just do this using the data sanitizer. Back in the tool, we will now check the box Remove Sunday Data, and we will change the offset from 0 to 2 in order to match the time zone difference between the FXCM data and the FX Pro data. We will also change the output file name to MT4_no untradable. And we'll select Sanitize. Once done, the new output file is available in our data folder, in my case desktop historical data, under file name gbpusd m1 bit MT4_no untradable. Next, we will re-import this data into MT4. In order to convert the 1 minute data to other time frames, we do not need to re-download the other time frames from FXCM and to sanitize them using the data sanitizer. Instead, we can simply use a script that comes built in with MetaTrader to do the job. Now, this script can be found in the Navigator panel, History Center, Scripts. On the M1, we're going to remove everything that's in there. Now, what it does, basically, it uses the 1 minute data to drive all the other time frames. All we need to do is to drag this script, I'm going to cancel this, into import the 1 minute chart. Go to inputs, and here we put in the factor by which the 1 minute data should be multiplied. Can open. So if you want to convert from 1 minute to 5 minutes, the factor obviously is 5, let's say. Now we're just going to refresh the chart, and we'll check. Now let's go back to the same reference point here. Go to the M5 time frame. Okay, we'll stop the script because it's done. And we right click and say refresh. Alright. You can see, now we have just 5 minute data. As you can see now, this already looks much closer to data. What FX will do the same thing. We'll go back to our 1 minute chart. It will never be a perfect match. Period converted into the chart is different data than FX Pro. Factor in this case, it should be somewhat close. And the time zone should be the same. The script execute. Now we can see we have navigate to the M15 time frame. What we had in FX Pro. We refresh and let's check at the time zone. And as a result, you see here it's the last 15 minute data. The bar comes in on Friday at 23:59. From our just sanitized this bar 1 minute data. Okay, we can use this data for our back. And the market opens at 0 hours. This sums up this introductory video how to use the data sanitizer tool. So you can see this data is much closer to what to expect historical data from the FXCM and how to make which was not sanitized, historical data match as closely as possible and where we had you can expect from your broker. As the next step, I will show you how to replicate this data to all the other time frames.